Hey everyone, the Faris banner. I'm still salty about my pulls yesterday, but at least I got her in the end, so all is good. Let's talk about Faris, Warrior of Light Bards, and Gilgamesh in this video. And instead of going through all of the abilities on the slides, I will include that in a special video within this video, so you'll see what I mean. So, Faris, in her base form, she is a Wind Evocation finisher. And a pretty strong one at that, let me tell you that. And in her Brave Shift, which is pretty cool about her from my point of view, is that she's a fire physical finisher, so you can gear her entirely differently. And what's the kicker here is Breaker, and she does a lot of imperils. And imperils 130% wind, water, fire. So that is pretty sweet. And as you will see, we're going to skip right through to the TMR and Trustmaster evaluation, because I will go through the abilities in just a moment when I showcase her. So her Trustmaster is a materia that provides 40% unconditional attack and magic, as well as 30% evocation magic. Now, keep in mind the wording in the game is pretty weird. This is evocation magic that she's getting. The materia itself is pretty much useless. And you won't use this on herself unless you are missing all the other pieces. And all the other pieces meaning for the materia slots you are using exactly the same things as you're doing for Terra. And the main reason for that is she needs still some evocation damage. She does not cap that on her own, even with her STMR and stuff, so you need evocation damage, and that is from the equipment that Terra also uses. But we'll go through that in a moment too. So another reason why you could use this, if you're short on her STMR, this is a good option for gearing, but it is also sadly unstackable, which would have been preferable for this materia in particular, just because it provides 30% evocation magic. And her Super Trustmaster is a sword with 160 attack and 185 magic, which also provides 50% evo magic. And ideally you want two of her STMR, just because she really lacks evocation magic. Now, this is super strong for herself, and a high source of evocation magic, and it also provides a flexible use for a Brave Shift if you want to use both forms in a fight. I wouldn't know why you want to do this, but there is a chance that you might use this. But otherwise, I think you'd be best off using actual attacking gear, physical type damage gear in her Brave Shift. But still, this STMR is mainly for herself, and at that it is very good. Best in slot even. Her vision card, pretty much the same applies to the vision card. Again, the animation is pretty cute, but yeah. So at level 1, base 35 attack, base 50 magic. As you can see, she actually focuses on magic. And at level 10, it's 65 attack and 90% magic. The passives, level 4 and 7, 30% magic and attack each if you're wearing a sword, and at level 10 she gains 20% unconditional magic, or the wearer receives 20% unconditional magic or magic, as well as 30% evocation damage, but both of this is tied to female units only. Now, this is not an issue. Most of the evocation damage dealers we have and will be getting in the future are female. Luna Freya comes to mind. But yeah, the stats, all in all, pretty decent. What I think, and this holds true, is that the level 10 passive with evocation damage is unnecessary or useless, so to speak. You are using Originator of the Final Summoning, and duty to the world anyway, which means you'll be at 290 roughly evocation damage. You don't need this vision card. A vision card with evocation magic would be preferable, and there is one, and that is Luna Freya, which also means by the time Luna Freya arrives with her vision card, Faris will be, well, pretty much dead anyways. At least for non-physical teams, that is. And yeah, that pretty much rounds about this, and we are going to showcase now not only Faris but also Bards, because you'll be using these two in combination all the time. You won't be seeing Faris without Bards and Bards without Faris. So let's check it out. Alright, so let's check out Faris and Bards together. But I want to mention something before we start. As you can see, I'm starting off with Faris and Bards in their Brave Shift. The update made a cool change that you can decide whether you want to start the fight in the Brave Shift or not. And this has a huge upside. You're seeing Shu Yu is on my team, and there's a reason for that. Shu Yu's Brave Shift is usually unavailable on turn 1. However, with the update, you can decide to have her Brave Shifted right away. And as you can see, she's in a Brave Shift, which usually has a turn cooldown. And this applies to every unit, no matter the cooldown on her actual Brave Shift. So there's units such as Starlight Elena who have a super strong cooldown on their Brave Shift. Once you're Brave Shifted, you have to wait a couple of turns to go back. Now with this update, you can go back immediately on turn 2, and we're gonna see this with Faris, for example. Whereas, for example, Starlight Elena has the same downside. Once you're shifted, you have to wait a few turns. The same applies to Faris. If you start off with Faris in her base form and then shift on turn 1, you will have a turn 2 cooldown to shift back to the normal form turn 2 going onwards. So keep in mind, please keep this in mind. If you want to burst on turn 2 with Faris, you have to start in her Brave Shift. Okay, so let's first of all check out Warrior of Light Bards. I didn't gear him specifically for this at all. You are free to do what you want and what you prefer with Bards. I would suggest that you gear him for Esper Fill and a little bit of resistances if necessary, of course, and LB Fill. And the reason is quite simple. Now, on the training dummy fight, your Esper gauge is full anyway, but in a real fight, your Esper gauge would be empty. And Faris actually needs her a little bit of Esper gauge. As you can see, Sildria's Roar consumes Esper gauge. There we go, consume Esper gauge to boost attack and magic. And this is where Bards comes into play. Give him some Esper Fill and you'll be good to go. So let's check out Bards' abilities. This is a little bit quicker. Let's start right off with his LB. His Brave Shifted LB boosts attack and boosts limit burst damage. So 280 attack, 280 magic for 5 turns to all allies. Forgettable, to be honest. Everyone has 300 these days. But the kicker here is A, the 100% LB increase. So that is a fire and forget LB for most of the time. But the important part here is the party gets a Wind Imbue for 5 turns, which is huge. He's also got a few notable things. He can now triple cast. So ideally your rotation on turn 1 would be gained a job level. You know this from his base form. Then the new thing is courage to face adversity. This enables Brave Blade, his main damage, but it also increases your damage to beasts and plants by 100%. And it also reduces physical and magic damage. But for us, the most important part here is the physical damage boost to beasts and plants, such as the upcoming Dark Vision. That one has a plant boss as the final boss. Now, if you're running Mazurka, if you have her, she has the better killer to plants. But for those who don't, such as me, Bards does make the cut here. So you'd want to use that. And the most important part is Blessed Wind Crystal. As you can see, this is a 45 wind amplification to all abilities and LBs for the whole party 5 turns. Absolute madman. Warrior of Light Bards is the MVP here, and he's super good. So obviously you're gonna use that if you want to burst on turn 2. By the way, I also didn't gear Bards' base form, so that doesn't matter. Then if you're running Faris, you want to run, obviously, Savior of Souls Lightning, as she has the 90% Spirit Break. So let's, do that as well. And Faris, let's check out her gear. Now, you might be aware that in her Brave Shift, Faris is a physical damage dealer. Please don't make the mistake and gear her for evocation or even magic damage. That won't do much for you. She is an actual physical damage dealer, just like last gen, just like Neovision Locke. And the comparison with Locke is probably the best one. You might also compare her to Vaughn, for example, in her Brave Shift. In that she does a lot of things, both of them do too. So this is the gear, just pretty much exemplary. This isn't what you're probably gonna run in real-time trials or Dark Visions, but it is exemplary. As you can see, Dark Ragnarok, who uses that these days. You wanna use a weapon with killers most likely. But yeah, as you can see, I left 2 ability slots empty. Reason is pretty easy. We are already at 310 LB damage, which is more than enough for this. We are also capped on true dual wield, so that is fine. And the rest of it is up to you regarding killers. And you want to use physical killers, obviously. And it's super easy to reach 300 on any kind of killer type, as long as you got the gear for it. And as for a division card, here is the trouble you're gonna face. You have to decide whether you want to use Faris as a evocation finisher or a fire physical finisher. If you want to use her as a fire physical finisher, obviously you're not gonna use her vision card. You're gonna use someone else's, Riku's, Sora's, whichever you like. And yeah, that pretty much concludes her side of things, which also implies that her actual attack is going to be a lot higher than this. It's just that her vision card is only 65 attack. Alright, and her base form. As you can see on the right hand side of the screen, you're seeing best in slot gear for her, which includes 2 of her Super Trust Masters. I only got 1 Faris, and she's still EX +1. I will get her EX +2 tomorrow. And so Saturday for those of you watching on a later date. And her limit, or her LB, her STMR, as you've just seen, is 50% evocation magic. It's pretty good, and you want ideally 2 of those. So this gear, probably not the best representative of how this goes, just because I got unlucky on pulling for her. But yeah, also you're not gonna use Dazzling Leader, it's just for her Trustmaster passive. The Trustmaster passive isn't necessary at all. You can entirely skip this, but you're gonna have this anyway due to using her Super Trustmaster. But I used her Trustmaster in this case just because I don't have a Super Trustmaster, and it also provides the 30% Evo magic. Other than that, this looks probably very familiar to you. Guardian of Lightzora, Alliance Heart, Originator of the Final Summoning. These are all abilities Terra also uses. And instead of Dazzling Leader, you would use Duty to the World, which is Luna Freya's STMR as well. But you're running the risk to overshoot on Esper damage. But keep in mind, we are using Terra's STMR sword here, so these 2, they pretty much cancel out each other. We're gonna still be at 290 Esper damage, meaning Evo magic. The wording in this game is quite bad for evocation, so keep that in mind. And ideally, if you're wearing 2 of her Super Trust Masters, you're gonna end up at way higher numbers for Evo damage. You'd be at, I believe, 210% or even more. Okay, and her vision card is a given for her base form. And other than that, that is pretty much all there is. You might want to use Yuna's cloths. Let me just quickly Google this. Because this one is pretty good as well. Yuna's clothes, there we go. As it provides 20% Evo magic. So you have the opportunity to either use Minstrel's Cloak, which is super high magic, or you boost her evocation magic further by using Yuna, that is not the FFX2 unit, but Final Fantasy X Yuna as STMR for additional evocation magic, meaning Evo magic. I could have done this, I forgot about the STMR, I just thought of it, but yeah. And we are probably soon gonna get Noctis Neovisions, who provides sword imperils, meaning Faris and Terra for that matter too will get a significant boost to their damage as well. Alright, so we amped ourselves up 45% wind, physical and magical, but in her Brave Shift, as already stated, Faris is fire physical, so her LB, for example, 120x modifier, it's fire locked, but it does a few things that are super crucial. A, it is a 130 imperil to fire, and B, she breaks 85% to all. So attack, defense, magic, and spirit for 3 turns to 1 enemy though. So keep that in mind. She also can triple cast, and the reason why, like I mentioned, just want to reiterate this, you want to have some kind of Esper fill. And this is the reason. This is a 300 attack and magic boost. The 100 LB damage boost is negligible, where she has a 251. We're gonna get to that in a second. But pretty much just like Terra, with the downside that she has to consume the evocation gauge for this. She also has a Blade of Courage fire attack, which also reduces fire resistance. I haven't leveled it yet, as you can see. But the most important part is Pirates Ahoy, which is the 250 LB damage increase. It fills her LB gauge entirely, as you can see, and it also imperils by 120, but she has a better imperil anyway. And the last one is Blessed Fire Crystal, and this one is crucial. If you're using her as a fire physical damage dealer or fire physical finisher, you want to use Blessed Fire Crystal. She has the highest fire amp for herself in the game at 50%. Nobody's better than this. And if you pair this up with, for example, Neovision Awakened Infernal Fire Rain, this stacks, obviously. The Esper field from NVA Infrared Rain stacks with her own boost, as well as if you amplifying fire, for example, in Dark Visions, she also stacks. She's gonna dish out a lot of damages. She's a seriously hard-hitting fire physical damage dealer. Don't underestimate her. So, but we're trying to emulate a wind evocation finisher. So you'd use Pirates Ahoy, you'd use Sildress Roar for the 300% magic, or ideally the other way around, Sildress Roar, Pirates Ahoy. And if you want to, the last one is up to you. You can use Blessed Fire Crystal, doesn't matter. Now on turn 2, you could already technically fire right away. But that would imply that you only have a 120 imperil to wind, and there's better options. And the better option is one of her abilities, but just bear with me a second, because her triple pirate arts are limited. And as you can see, the most important abilities, Arrow Cannon and Water Cannon, are not triple castable. They're only single cast, and you can only cast one of them. Artillery Fire, really doesn't matter, it's more a, what's it called, arena ability, as it has a chance to kill all enemies on site or on attack. And then also has some status elements, but most of the arena guys in the top 100 are immune to death anyway. She can fill an evocation gauge and use Sildress Summon, just like Terra, Chaos Wave Chain, all enemies, etc, etc. Nothing too special. So the most notable and important parts are arrow cannon and water cannon. Both do the same thing, just different element. So arrow cannon and water cannon alike, wind or respectively water damage, and a 130% free turns, all enemy, wind imperil. Super strong. She's the only one in the game, only Neo Vision base unit, I should state, that has this. And the same applies to the water cannon, but we've got Locke, for example, with 130 water imperil. We've also got Tifa if you want to use her still in this day and age. But yeah, so on turn 2, you're gonna use arrow cannon. You're gonna shift back Bards, and he's gonna use gain the job level 3. You'd wanna use things such as dual spellblade for another modifier. And if you like to, you can use Blade of Pursuit for a wind imbue to one for himself and an ally. So we're gonna choose last gen for this, as he is not imbuing himself with wind. But you could also use his Brave Shifted LB to imbue everyone with him. This is just if you cannot do this otherwise. In an ideal scenario though, you would wait until turn 5 to fire all the abilities. This is the optimal rotation. You'd power up Bards and have him chain with, say, for example, Lightning. And this is probably how I'm gonna do this on some of the final stages in Dark Visions. Last gen, let's do whatever. He's not the focus of this anyway. So Complete Awakening, etc, etc. Lightning can just buffer LB stuff, for example. They're not important to all of this. Alright, so we are almost done. Technically, Faris is already good to go, so since she's good to go, we will have a fire right away. And let's just check out, because chaining with all these units is pretty easy. And in a real world scenario, you'd use job level gain mastered, you'd still power up his stuff via fragments of inner courage, you might use another wind imbue for someone else. The choice is yours pretty much, but since we are already aiming at a turn 3 burst damage, let's do this. So here's how this goes, right? You'd have your LB damage dealers. Sure, you would have been replaced by, say, Mastermind Zone, who would also chain Absolute Mirror of Equity, and that'd be it. Now, the most important part is to not have your Absolute Mirror of Equity chainers, in this case, like Bards and Lightning, fire first, because then they won't be affected by the wind amplification field from Faris. There's also another possibility to do all of this with Bards. Let me just quickly look up the ability, because I need to check something. Alright, if I'm not mistaken, Bards has an ability, Warrior Bards, that imbues everyone with one ability that is AR chain. I just need to make sure that I'm not telling something wrong here. Where is it? Give me a second. No, that's okay. No, that's fine. I can't see it right now. No, I was under the impression Bards had an ability that could grant everyone AR chains, but I'm not seeing it right now. Maybe I'm just blind, who knows. Oh, Wind's Wake, it's on Raging Winds. Okay, on Raging Winds he grants Wind's Wake to the team, and Wind's Wake is a 30 damage AR chain to all enemies. So this is how you would have 2 AR chainers on the team without actually having to fill a spot for AR chain. Okay, so I found it in the end. But Since we're using Savior Soul's Lightning, might as well use LB, you'd use it anyway. Alright, so first off, you would start Faris and wait a couple of seconds. So I'm gonna fire her first, let her LB CG run a bit. The way you want to do this, you want to wait until the dragon is in the middle of the screen and then fire off the rest of the team. And the reason is, that is when the amplification applies to the team. So you'd wait a few seconds, wait, over here. Might have been too late. Nope, it was not too late. Once the dragon is up here on the screen, 20 billion damage is pretty much perfect. That is the way this goes. It's good that this is the second time I'm recording this, by the way. On the first run I missed that one. So once you see the dragon on the field up here in the screen, you can fire everyone else. But as long as you don't, as long as you do this first, you will be good. Oh, he doesn't have enough mana. That's bad. Let's see. Is there anything? Yeah, this one is good. Oh, that's too bad. He's short on mana, but we've got shoot you. Oh, we can't fill out MP, right? Yeah. How are we gonna do this? Let's use last gen instead for absolute mirror of equity chaining then instead, just to show you once more how to do this properly. So it's A and W, that's easy to use. So again, Faris goes first. You wait, you go. And I was wrong, for example. And it's a little bit tricky. It's easier to do when it's the very first turn, as the dragon is going to show up a little bit earlier than it did this time around. So let's do this again. You wait, and this is usually the time when the dragon is coming up. I messed it up again. So as you can see, this is not easy to do, sadly. And yeah. So let's do this one more time, see that I can do this properly. Wait, and there we go. Nope, I was wrong again. And I believe this is the end, right? No, it's not. Cool. So just one more time. You wait, you go. But the units didn't apply. Anyway. As you can see, this requires a lot of training. I haven't perfected it myself yet, but we've got a whole week to learn how to use her LB properly. I need some more training, as you can see. I only managed to pull this off once reliably, or well, I should say. Nothing is reliable here. So yeah, keep in mind, so once the dragon appears at the top of the screen, fire away your DPS. It is the easiest if you're doing this with AR chains, because AR chains fire right away on press, and in contrast to chains such as Stardust Ray. I believe even that Faris is absolutely not usable with SR chainers, because SR chainers have a way too long time to wind up, and you just have to wait or stall for another turn. That is possible too. But yeah, that pretty much concludes the showcase. Let's get back to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so we've talked about Faris and Bards. Let's talk about Gilgamesh now. So in his base form, as you can see, he doesn't really gain much. He gets the triple attack or triple... He can triple cast his ability. That is what I was looking to say. And it's pretty much all of his abilities, as you can see. He also gains the 6x chain modifier cap. He can certainly dual wield stuff, which is pretty sweet. Gains a little bit higher modifiers on his stuff, etc. And his limit burst also got a small upgrade. It increases attack, magic, defense, spirit by 300% now, which is undispellable for all eternity, which is pretty huge. And he also gains a new ability also and increases his LB by 150%. So pretty decent, but still it's Gilgamesh. This is not his role, to be honest. It's all about his Brave Shift, and as you can see, this Brave Shift is loaded. And the main part here is, from my point of view, is that he can AR cast, which is pretty sweet. And B, for trials, he is your go-to guy when breaking break gauges. As you can see, he can break gauge for mace, axe, spear, sword, and katana, which is a lot of weapon types. Some we haven't had so far, such as spear, axe, and mace. I know we hadn't had any spear breaker so far, and mace. I'm pretty sure we didn't have these two so far, so that is sweet. Other than that, he can decrease attack, magic, defense, spirit by 80%, so breaks, 80% breaks, while also dealing some damage. The rest of it though, he's a pretty troll unit for arena, as you can see. Secret Sword Art Zantetsuken with a 70% chance to kill all enemies. Pretty sweet, but again, you probably won't use him for anything else other than break gauge breaking. But his Grandis, you cannot even hold a candle to my spirit, is another one that is interesting from my point of view. It has a chance to protect all enemies, all allies from damage mitigation, which is a cover ability, physical cover, but it only has 40% mitigation, so he's probably going to die if he does this. And he also dies anyway on the second turn after casting it. As you can see, he deals fixed damage, or he deals damage to one enemy, but also inflicts death to the caster, meaning himself. So, And his limit burst, he deals 1 damage to self and 130 physical damage to an enemy. But this is not a finisher, it is a 9-hit LB, so this might actually break some chains if you're trying to weave this in somewhere. So keep this in mind. So how do all how do all these units fare in the meta? So Faris is a superb damage dealer, especially when she's paired with bards, and only when she's paired with bards. Faris on her own is not so good. Bards himself is a superb supporter for Faris, and whenever you need a wind team, so both of them are, generally speaking, more suited towards dark visions, especially the pair of them. Meanwhile, Gilgamesh is an all-round break gauge breaker. With decent stuff, you can use him for a lot of things, and he's more suited towards trials. So yeah, Faris is considerably weaker than Terra when not paired with bards. Especially when it comes to damage, best in slot Faris versus best in slot Terra. Terra wins, albeit slightly. And you have to take into account that Faris actually provides so much more for the team than Terra does. For example, Faris does the aforementioned 130 break imperils to fire, wind, and water. She has her LB field, which is another wind amplification, physical wind amplification especially. So she does the damage she does on her own, as well as amplifying other people's damage. The amount of combined damage you would deal is higher than with the same team, or a Terra team for that matter, when using Terra. And that is the reason why you should care about Faris, because she's not good on her own, but the team composition, that makes her so good. But yeah, like I said, she's almost entirely useless for trials unless you want a wind team anyway. So the conclusion on Faris is super finisher if you have the gear for her. Conclusion for bards. Best supporter for wind teams in LB fields. He can fill Faris LB easily because Faris needs 100 LB crystals, which is super expensive, so you'd rather end up using bards anyway. And the conclusion, Gilgamesh, forgettable unless you're facing break gauges. I'm never gonna use Gilgamesh unless it's gauge trial that requires me to break gauges. So take that for what you will. But his STMR and TMR are pretty cool. Alright, so should you pull? Now, if you have the gear and want to increase your overall damage, and this is the important part here, the overall damage, go for it. Like I said a few minutes ago, Faris on her own doesn't deal that much damage, not even by a long shot as Terra. But the combination with bards and using the synergies, the whole team will deal more damage. Okay, the Faris plus bards combo is the ultimate team comp for Dark Visions until Luna Freya arrives, as she will shift back the meta towards just one evocation finisher who does all the things, pretty much the same thing we had so far with Terra. And if you don't have the immensely expensive gear, it is all STMR, mind you. Faris is also very good as a fire physical damage dealer in her Brave Shift, which is not even close to being as expensive as her base form. And yeah, Bards can work on his own, but works best with Faris. And this means that pretty much the star of the banner, from what I've seen and heard from other YouTubers so far, is that Bards is the star of the banner, to be honest. Faris, you can live without her, but not having bards might be really bad. Especially for the upcoming Dark Visions, where bards is going to play a huge role. Even without Faris, that is. So a good option is still going for Faris for high scores in Dark Visions. She is mainly a Dark Visions unit, keep that in mind. Pretty much useless in trials, so yeah. Spend with care, don't do the same mistake I did by spending 40k if you don't get her via tickets. Leave it be, honestly. But if you're really interested in Dark Visions and want to score highly, well, Faris and Bards are going to be the star of the banner for you, so this is why I probably going to stop the star of the banner and good option things, because it is kind of dependent on what you're looking for. But in this case, Bards definitely is the star of the banner, because he's just universally good, whereas Faris is only good for Dark Visions. Alright, that sums up this banner review. I hope you enjoyed this and the changes I made to them. I think it's better this way around, especially if I have the unit myself. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful to you, and we'll see each other probably on Thursday again, unless something else happens, for the next banner and Dark Visions especially. So see ya, have a nice weekend, bye bye.